going on, guys? My name is Elias. In today's video, we're going to be going over why the FL5 Civic Type R completely failed when I took it to the track straight from the factory floor. Now, in case you missed it, the previous video, I took this car to the track and showed many ways in which basically it just wasn't up to par from the factory. Never fear, a couple of modifications here and there will get this thing running perfectly. But in this video, I'm going to go over the technicalities and the reasoning behind why Honda does not ship this car ready to track. Alright, well, so it's barely noon and my Red Bull has not even been opened yet. And we are headed home, boys and girls. And it's hard to blame the Civic Type R, it really is. Because, like I said at the beginning of this video, the whole point of today is to see if the factory set up this car to be ready to go on a racetrack. And, you know, I was surprised when the Camaro ZL11LE did so well from the factory. I did nothing to it, didn't even change the brake fluid. And I did a stint at Sebring, and it did it perfectly fine. I was very surprised. And I'm not surprised that this car is not done the same way. You see, Chevy, I mean, you can blame Chevy for lots of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of garbage that Chevy does and makes, but their sports car division is like none other. They are purely American-bred sports car fanatics. The guys that tuned the ZL11LE wanted a no-compromise car from the factory, and they did it. My bad, guys. The factory brake pads on the ZL11LE are beautiful. They're perfect, right? They're not quite as grabby as I'd like them to be, but they're the best factory brake pads I've ever seen. The factory brake pads on the Civic Type R, they're not very good. They're better than the FK8 factory brake pads, so we'll go there. But they definitely did not hold up to the way I drive my car. I'll give you guys a kind of a brief overview of how I drive. So I'm heading down the straightaway at the track, and as I'm getting into the corner, I throw on the brakes like a parachute, like an anchor. I want to anchor the car, and I brake, and then I start letting go of the brake a little bit, but I'm still pretty hard on braking and turning at the same time. This is called threshold braking or trail braking, right? So this is the technical term, trail braking. I was doing that a lot with this car. Now, this track, the firm, is very tough on brake pads and brakes. So again, you have to forgive the Type R, but the first session, as you guys know, the brake system gave me an error, and you know, I brought it in after like 3 laps, right? 3 laps at the firm is like 4 minutes at most, including a warm-up lap, or 5 minutes. And so it wasn't much. The second time around, I really started getting into the funk of it. I really started getting really into it. I was really enjoying it. And I did 4 laps, and again, the brake pads started failing me so much that the brake pedal was starting to, you know, get mushy. And the brake pads, you can tell they were off gassing significantly, because I would get a firm brake pedal but no braking force. So that means that the brake pad itself is off gassing, and there's a layer of gas between the braking surface and the brake pad. And so, you know, that goes to show you the braking materials used in this car are not great. And there's a couple of reasons for that in case you guys are interested. I know we're going to get a little nerdy here, so, you know, bear with me. But environmentally, like the EPA and other regulatory bodies monitor everything that goes into a car, everything from the brake pads to the clutch material to gasoline, obviously, everything that goes into a car. And that's a good thing, because we used to have lead paint, and we used to have lead brake pads, and we would have lead in the water, and we would have lead and mercury everywhere. I mean, it would just be in our fish and our food, and lead poisoning is a really big problem. Lead poisoning is a huge problem, and I'm glad we forced companies to stop using that. But I think today we're going a little bit overboard, and we don't like this. There's too much copper now in brake pads, right? So there's a lot of regulation out there that limits the amount of copper allowed in a brake pad. And especially in California, there's really strict regulations. So if you buy a Camaro, let's say, in California, it'll be different than buying a Camaro everywhere else. There's different brake pads involved. At least when I bought my Camaro, I'm not sure if, the last Camaros off the line had that issue. But in 2022, when I bought my Camaro, or actually it was late 2021 I bought my Camaro, it didn't have that issue. So my Camaro specifically has the better brake pads. If you would have bought it from California, it would have had the worst brake pads. And Honda, it's a really good company. They really care about regulations, emissions, and the environment. They really do. So they go overboard, right? If there's something that's regulated, they're going to make sure that they're going to do it from the factory. So the engine is very efficient. It's very low carbon, dioxide emissions. It's, even the Type R it's very good. The materials are all biodegradable, and they pass all the standards. And so obviously they're not going to use the brake pads that California doesn't want you to use. They're going to use crappier brake pads. And the brake fluid, I'm fairly certain, I would be willing to bet that the brake fluid they use is the same brake fluid that regular Civics get, right? And again, this car is built in Japan, but whatever brake fluid they use in Japan is in this car. It's not any different than any other brake fluid in any other cars. So in my second session, and I thought this was going to happen, so because what I did was I siphoned out as much as I could of fluid from the factory, and I put Castrol SRF into that brake reservoir. And my first session out, the brake fluid boiled, and the brake pads weren't doing so great. My second session, the brake pads literally started gassing off, and they were smoking at the end of the session. It was ridiculous how bad it was. All that smoke coming out of the brakes, and I'm like, wow, okay, well, the brake fluid finally, mixed, right? And so it's a higher temperature that I can take, but the brake pads themselves weren't up to the task. So today we proved two things: that the brake fluid is garbage, that needs to be changed immediately, and the second thing is that the brake pads are not very good. They're not the worst, right? They're not the worst. They didn't completely disintegrate immediately like most other brake pads would, but they're not very good. And there was an older gentleman there with me, and he used to have a K-swapped Insight. I think it was K-swapped or B-swapped, one of those. And so he's got a lot of experience, but he's got a white Civic Type R, and he didn't have a problem with his brakes at all. Completely stock like mine is. He had no problems with his brakes. I found that interesting, right? And so I think it's my driving style, and I expect this car to be able to brake really well. I mean, I use Hawk DTC 60 brake pads in the front and DTC 60s in the back. You can change them up depending on your needs, but I like DTC 60s all around. And those things are anchors, and they have never faded on me. They've never given me any issues. And I'm gonna go home probably right now and change the brake pads to race brake pads, because I want to be able to just take this car, get on the track, not worry about the braking, not worry about, am I gonna be able to brake hard enough so I don't hit the wall, because that could have happened. And yeah, so we figured it out. The rest of the car, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, right? The power's there, the comfort's there, the seat holds you in on the track just like you wanted. The steering feels perfect. Suspension's a little bouncy. I will say I may change something in the suspension. I'm thinking maybe springs, maybe stiffen up the springs a little bit so that it correlates better with a plus R damping. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I wanted to give you guys kind of the background and lowdown on what happened on today's track day. And my first track day with a Civic Type R. First track day of 2024. And I'm excited, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We got a little nerdy there at the end. I hope you guys appreciate that. And if you do, hit that like button and subscribe for more of these videos. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. Peace. go, go.